Many people, including journalists, speak about the EU budget being riddled with fraud. Such articles often come after the news that once again the European Court of Auditors has not signed off on the EU budget. So is it true? Does the Court of Auditors find massive amounts of fraud? Or why is it that they don't sign off on the budget? The Court of Auditors checks all the financial books of the EU institutions and bodies for two things: whether or not the books are fully in order, and whether or not payments are made in line with the rules. Let's first have a look at the first point. Up until 2007, the auditors found that the books were mostly fine, but they did find some problems. Every year after that, however, they found no more problems and they fully signed off on the books. This means that since 2007 the accounts gave an accurate reflection of what happened to the money, or in other words, every single euro spent was accounted for. It is the second point that creates the problems. While all income was free of error, the money spent was not. Because of this, the auditors have not given a green light on this second point, ever. The auditors will only give a full green light when less than 2% of the payments are affected by errors. Until now, the EU has never managed to do this, but has gotten a bit closer through the years. By the way, a very large part of the errors occur within the member states and not in Brussels, illustrating again that an EU problem is never that simple. So does this mean that more than 2% of the money spent by the EU was fraudulent? Luckily it doesn't. An error means the payment was not in line with the rules. In most cases this means a simple administrative mistake was made, and it usually doesn't mean the goal of the project was undermined. Payments for projects to build a bridge might contain some errors, but a good bridge can still be the result. According to EU estimates, only 0.2% of payments are affected by fraud. Although only 0.2%, it does mean that in 2015's budget, for example, a whopping 282 million was somehow affected by fraud. While affected by does not mean all the 282 million went to some guy's new yacht. Some part of that money might have though. Although very little per EU citizen, it is a lot of money as a whole. So naturally the EU, through its European Anti-Fraud Office, tries to stop it all. Which sadly, due to the complex nature of the EU and its member states, isn't the easiest thing to do. But still the Commission manages to get back quite some money that was misused each year. To recap, the Court of Auditors checks for two things: if the books are accurate and complete. On this point the auditors have signed off every year since 2007. And if the money was spent in line with the rules, which the auditors have never signed off on because more than 2% of payments were affected by error, most of which are administrative mistakes and not intentional fraud. A substantial part of these errors are made by the member states themselves. Also, while a part of the payments were affected by error or even fraud, it does not necessarily mean that the whole payment was fraudulent or that the goals were not reached. Still, about 0.2% of all payments are somehow affected by fraud, which is a lot of money, so it should be a prime concern of the EU and all its member states. To find out more about the other institutions, the history of the EU and other subjects, please check out our playlists and subscribe to our channel.